I'd rather regret the risk that didn't work out than the chances I didn't take at all. That is a quote by Simone Biles.
Welcome to Trina Talk. Trina Talk is a weekly podcast that will inspire and empower women of all ages to strive for the impossible. Your host, Trina L. Martin from TrinaMartin.com, is a motivational speaker, leader, and cyber tech expert. Every week, Trina will share wisdom gained from her life experiences and lessons learned while pursuing her goals to inspire you to achieve the next level in your life. Now, your host, Trina L. Martin.
Hello, welcome to Trina Talk. I am your host, Trina L. Martin, and this is episode 86. Are you a small or medium-sized business that still relies on email to send important information to your clients or employees? Or do you have clients and employees in multiple locations and you need to stay connected with them? Well, I want to help you. I work with small to medium-sized businesses to help them identify technical solutions so that they can stay connected to their remote clients, customers, and employees. So if you're ready to elevate your business operations and use technology effectively to communicate with your remote clients, customers, and train your employees, email me at nextlevel@trinamartin.com. The topic of this week's episode is, can you network and negotiate? My guest this week is Sabine Gedeon. Sabine is a life and leadership coach, author, and speaker. She serves ambitious, mission-driven leaders and entrepreneurs. She helps them to identify and overcome their self-sabotaging behavior, take action towards the goals they really want to achieve, and unapologetically step into their leadership identity and power. With a focus on mindset, personal growth, self-leadership, professional development, and transformation, she has over 15 years experience supporting leaders and professionals in their career development within Fortune 100 companies. Sabine has helped hundreds of professionals break through barriers, uncover or build their leadership capabilities, and experience personal and professional growth. Hi, Sabine. Welcome to Trina Talk.
Hi, Trina. Thank you so much for having me today.
Well, you know what? I really am loving what you do. You are a life and leadership coach, you're an author, you're a speaker, but you have some things in your personal life that you have also experienced that led you to be the person that you are today. So take the listeners back and give us a brief synopsis of who you are and what made you do the things that you're doing today.
Yeah, thank you for that. So yes, I am transitioning, and I say transitioning as I talk about my transformation process, you'll understand, but transitioning into this identity of the life and leadership coach. So a little background about me. I spent 13 years in corporate America in HR, and for 10 of those years, when I started my career as this eager beaver, I wanted to be like the senior HR business partner. And I started my career mostly in recruiting. And, over the time, like working through, like busting my butt to try to get promotion after promotion. And I realized that I was getting pigeonholed into the recruiter role. And I, from the start of my career, wanted to be this HR business partner because to me, they were the ones who had the most impact and they were working closely with the leaders, so on and so forth. And so once I realized I was pigeonholed, or I had pigeonholed myself, I can't blame it on anyone else really. I went back to school, got my master's, and I transitioned into a role that allowed me to fast track into the HR business partner. So talk about 10 years of fast tracking. Finally got into the role, and 6 months in, I realized that this was not for me. Like, this was not what I wanted to do. And, the reality of that took me on a journey, if you will, or another journey in my life. For me at the time, it was, okay, I've worked so hard for 10 years to finally get this role that I had been coveting. And now that I finally got it and realized that it's not what I wanted, it started to make me question, not necessarily who am I, but what am I meant to do? The thing that I had been working for is not what I wanted. It's not who I was. It wasn't making the impact that I thought it was going to make. And so it forced me to have to step um, or really go deep. I am a woman of faith, so really go deep into that space of questioning. Okay, well, how does my purpose align with the work that I'm supposed to be doing? And so maybe I would say over a course of a year, it forced me to take a step back of really assessing, okay, based on what I've done in my career, what were the moments, what were the roles in which I felt like I was the most impactful or that I got the most joy. Literally doing, kind of like a self-evaluation as far as it related to my career, but also too trying to tie it back to what am I here to do? And I remember thinking, I kept being brought back to the times of which, like, I was able to coach people. Part of my roles as being on the recruiter side and being on the HR business side was, sitting down with employees from the leadership level all the way down. What is it that you really want? Like, helping them paint the picture of where they wanted to be or where they wanted to go, and then helping them put the steps, the systems, the processes, whatever, the strategy in place to help them get there. And I just remember there was this role that I had in particular for 3 years where it was nonstop career coaching for internal employees. And then it was nonstop coaching as leaders or as new leaders were stepping into leadership roles and helping them adjust to that identity shift of going from peer to leader. And, as I was taking that year to kind of assess what I wanted to do next, I realized that to me, those years were the best years of my career, not because I had, X title or X dollar amount, in my salary, but it was because I could literally see the fruits of my labor, if you will. I could literally see the impact of me working with someone closely, of me helping people put pieces in place, and how that changed their lives. It changed their livelihood. It changed how they saw themselves. And so once that clicked for me, it was almost like, the skies opened and it was that, where I had that moment of that's what I want to do. Whatever that thing is called, that's what I want to spend my life doing, because that's where I feel like I'm being called to serve within, the walls of corporate. So long story short, I worked for another 2 years in corporate, kind of, continuing to build my skill set from the HR perspective, but also to building out the basics for my business, my coaching business. And because I had started as a recruiter and, I had seen enough seen enough resumes to know what works, what didn't work, sat in through enough interviews. I wanted to help people. I wanted to help position people better when they were in the job search field. And then also too, I wanted to help women specifically, do a better job or get more confident in articulating their value during salary negotiations. So it was part career coaching, part, salary negotiation, confidence coach for women. And in addition to that, I did a lot in terms of like helping women understand the importance of networking, both in and outside of the organization. As someone who was in HR, I sat in on a lot of decisions, whether it was during the succession planning process or whether we were talking about promotions. And, the reality was most women, and I understand I'm generalizing, have this mindset, especially in corporate, of, I'm going to put my head down and I'm going to work and somebody's going to notice me and eventually they'll tap me on the shoulder and give me a promotion. Meanwhile, their counterpart, Bill, is in his manager's office and his manager's office, telling how great, how not great he is, but, what the team is doing and what the impact has been and, all of the wins. And so, by whatever natural means, when it came time to make those decisions, people remember the person who the person who was always showing up, and oftentimes that wasn't the women. And so as it relates to just kind of helping build confidence and helping women advance in their careers, that's what I launched out and started doing back in 2018. And
Wow.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I have since shifted where it's not necessarily as career focused as it was, but still it's the same concept around helping people identify what it is that they want, who it is that they want to show up as, and then helping them gain the confidence to be able to step into that identity.
What I was going to say is that's so amazing. And you hit the nail on the head, because I spent 20 plus years in corporate. And like you said, women, they just don't show up like the men do. I remember going in, like you said, busting my butt, doing my job, but it was always that male counterpart who, when you looked around, got the raise or got promoted, and you're like, okay, what's going on? I'm here, I'm doing my job. But I think we as women, we don't, assert ourselves like the men. I don't know what it is, but I found exactly what you're saying to be true. Now, because you said you worked for this coveted position that you thought, okay, this is it. And I think we've all been there. And once you got there, you realize that wasn't your calling. It wasn't for you. Was there any one thing that happened to make you see that? Or was it one of those things where you were like, okay, I finally arrived, and then you got there and you were like, ooh, this is not what I thought it was going to be?
Yeah, it was a combination of those things. It was, the excitement of a new job, right? The first couple of months, like everything is great, everything is gravy. And I actually ended up relocating for that job. And so I think had I not relocated and not been like so far outside of my comfort zone, at the time, I probably would have been in the mindset where I was just like, okay, hey, I'm here now, like just suck it up. But my entire life had been like shaken just months prior. So whatever form of stability or whatever belief of stability I had already been, stripped just enough so that it allowed me to see it. I feel like it just allowed me to see things for what they were versus, falling back into the old patterns of, okay, well, I'm just going to push through. I'm going to grin and bear it. And I'm just going to, eventually it's going to get better. So for me at the time also too, for me, it was just more of like, okay, I've worked 10 years for this, gone back to school, and part of it was the organization. I will definitely say that part of it was the organization and the structure. But the capacity to actually like just sit down and have a conversation with someone to understand, like that wasn't there. It was just like you were constantly drinking out of a fire hose. And it was just like, you're not making an impact. Like you're just making it through the day. And after a few months of feeling like that, it was just like, no, this isn't it. Like this can't be it. And like I said, because my environment had shifted so drastically, it gave me the space to explore, okay, if I can step outside of my comfort zone as it relates to my physical environment, what can I do to shift and to change like my career trajectory right now?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that is so key. And like you said, a lot of people end up in these situations where they are unhappy, but like you said, they figure, okay, you know what? I'm here, I moved, whatever. I have a family and this is how it is. So I'm going to just bear it. And unfortunately, a lot of people go through life and they're really unhappy, but
Mm-hmm.
they've been imprisoned by the job because they know they need to pay their bills and, provide a livelihood for their family. So I think that is really key. And that's such a great thing that you learned that early on. So tell me, how do you work with your clients who may be in that same predicament?
Yeah. So as I've been evolving or transforming personally, I think I know the type of people that I've desired to work with has been changing and transforming as well. And so a lot of my earlier clients or my previous clients were people who were at this place where, however long they were following a career path. I'll give you a perfect example. One of my previous clients was in banking, came here from a different country, like worked her way up through banking, worked her way up through getting all of her degrees. And now she was working on getting her PhD. And, she wanted to shift. She wanted to go from being in banking and management and banking to working at the UN, which was, like on paper, like a huge leap. But her passion and her desire had pushed her despite wherever she was, like in terms of, economically or just career wise, to like continue to get her degree to that point of getting her PhD. And she was just at the place where, for her identity had been wrapped up for so long in, being in management and banking. And so a lot of our work, I mean, clearly she had the smart, she had the know-how, she was getting the education. It could be an easier transition, but a lot of our work dealt with me helping her to start to see herself differently, to start to let go of the titles and the roles that she had played for the last 20 years, to say that, that was training ground for you. Like, you needed to go through that process. There are roles that you had to take, there are experiences that you had to have in that space to get you here. And, working through getting away from letting the roles and the titles and whatnot define her, versus looking at it from the standpoint of, oh, no. Those were literally the training steps that I needed to get here. And then stepping into, or even just owning, like, I've been working for the last 20 years for this role. I've been preparing for the last 20 years for this role. And now I'm positioned for this type of role. So it was the actual like tactical nature of, okay, let's get the resume, let's get the networking plan, let's get the other stuff. But then it was also to the mental and the emotional of breaking away from the past and leaning in and embracing the fear of, well, what does it mean for me to not be, a banking person? Or what does it mean for me to be someone who is, making decisions, strategic, high-level decisions in the UN? So that's kind of where I've landed in terms of like clients right now, and who I work with. It's the people who know, all right, what I'm doing is not satisfying, whether that's in the professional space or whether that's just in your life and personal. I work with type A ambitious women who are in leadership roles, and I'm sure I know I'm stereotyping, but some stereotypes hold true. It's you're ambitious and you're constantly working towards something, and on the outside, people always look and be like, oh, but you're so successful, but inside of you, like something is off, like something isn't where you want it to be or where it can be. And oftentimes, going back to what you just shared, it's so much easier to just kind of like play safe and just be like, all right, you know what, I'm going to play into the roles that society has given me, or that, people expect from me, versus stepping out and saying, you know what, maybe it does look like I have it all, but I'm not happy with whatever this all is. And I know that there's something else for me. So I work with people in trying to identify whatever that thing is, and then also to gaining the confidence and just the sheer giving themselves permission to explore what that other thing might look like.
Mm, that is so good. And it's funny when you said that, I was like, oh, she talking about me. Because I am that type A person, and I had great corporate jobs, and it was my last job, and it's kind of resonates with what you were saying, that I moved across the country for my children were very small. I had just come off a divorce, everything. So I figured, okay, this is going to be a start to a new part of our lives and new chapter. And as soon as I walked in the door, I said, oh my goodness, I made a mistake. And the organization, by all intents and purposes, everybody was like, oh my God, oh yeah, but I was like, no, this is not for me. And just some of the things I encountered with the people and how they try to attack me. And one day I said, God, why is this happening? Why did you give me this job, bring me here and all of this? And then something said that there's more for you. You were meant to do more. And if I had stayed where I was previously, I would have been comfortable. I never would have been pushed like I was pushed with this current job to make me say, okay, I'm branching out and I'm going to start my own business, because, that's what happens when you're uncomfortable. You start seeing and thinking of the possibilities of things, and you start, like you said, really tapping into yourself. And it's just amazing how that happens. Not for everyone, but a lot of people take those life lessons and they sit back and they start to assess themselves and evaluate, what is it that is truly my purpose.
Yeah. And the power in what you just said is oftentimes, and I share this with clients all the time, people expect, well, it's two things. They'll either fear change and like just run away from it, but then they also expect like the good things, like the major breakthroughs to come through in these like good experiences that just feel great. And, the skies are open. And oftentimes it's in the most uncomfortable, it's in the most painful, it's in the most disruptive situations in life that like these changes, these big changes, and the ones that have the biggest impact, that's how they show up. And so I'm a firm believer in, when all hell is broken loose in your life, that's an indication that you're shifting into a different version of yourself. And so again, it's easy to just wallow, or it's easy to like run in fear and hide. But there's a saying, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And oftentimes the teacher is not a nice one. It's change, it's pain, it's discomfort, it's whatever. But the reason why it's showing up is because you're ready. You are actually ready to transition into that next place. And that's the thing that's going to propel you to the place that you want to be or need to be.
Wow. So talk to us about your journey since you stepped away from corporate. You have built your business. Tell me about some of your successes, your failures, some of your mindset as you were going through, because both you and I know, even though you got on that journey and you're like, okay, this is my purpose, I'm going to go this way. It's not without, the pebbles in the road.
Pebbles? You mean boulders? Boulders. I learned so many painful lessons, good ones that hold true to me. One of the biggest things is in corporate, this journey has been very introspective for me, because as a kid, you're rewarded. Like if you do something, if something's assigned, you do it well, you're rewarded. In corporate America, same thing. Like you get to assign to a project, you do the project well, you're rewarded for a promotion or whatever the case may be. One of my biggest challenges being a type A person is, you can do all of the things, right? You can sign up for somebody's program, like you could launch, you can have your sales funnel, you can do all the marketing, you can do all those things, and it still may not work out. And in the beginning, I struggled, not even just with getting stuff done or implementation, but it was my self-worth. I didn't realize at the time, but my self-worth and my like self-value had been so wrapped up in, the outward recognition, if you will, of others. And, the way that it showed up was if I did all these things and then I put it out there and nobody bought, or it was crickets or whatever the case may be, it was causing me to question, like, okay, well, am I doing the right thing? Like, is there something wrong with me? Like, why can't I get it? And this, that, and third. And what I didn't realize at the time, especially in the beginning, that it wasn't about, it wasn't a reflection of my self-worth. And also too, you know, this entrepreneurial journey or whatever business that you're building is a reflection of who you are. And so as I was transforming it from this person that relied on others or relied on the system that I had grown it up in, as I was transitioning, like I would start to see things differently. And I didn't realize that at the time. I hope that makes sense. It was more of taking away it was almost like an undoing, if you will, of all of the things that I have been taught that were, what created success, and me going on this journey to discover for myself, well, who am I? Who am I becoming? And how is that reflecting in me, in my business, and what it is that I wanted to build? Also, to another lesson that ties into that is, I used to fear failure. Like failure was like a bad four-letter word, because in my household, I'm a child of immigrants. I'm an immigrant myself. It was just kind of like, you got to work hard, you got to work hard, you got to work hard. And so for me, when things weren't working out in the beginning, it was, oh my gosh, I'm such a failure. Oh my gosh. And all of these beliefs that had been formed as a child, like I was literally faced with and had the opportunity and the chance to say, okay, is that true? Is that true? It was literally like an undoing of everything that I had been taught all my life in the first 6 months of my entrepreneurship journey. And I learned to see, quote unquote, failure a lot differently. What had been defined as like something that, in my mind at the time, as like something that's like unforgivable, and it just speaks to who you are and your worth and all that other stuff. It was like, okay, I could look at this as I failed, or I could look at this as I've never done this before and I'm simply testing it out. And once that reframe started to happen, like I kid you not, like it shifted my confidence, it shifted my vision and the things that I did and the things that I went after, and how I showed up, to the people that I was trying to attract. And the evidence was so clear that it was never about, again, the external praise or the external reward, but it was more as I let go of those old beliefs that, don't get me wrong, once served me, because those are the beliefs that I needed to do good in school, to do good in my career. But as I transitioned into an entrepreneur, it's not just, oh, it's another job and you just work for yourself. No, like you become an entrepreneur. There's a transformation process that happened. And as I became an entrepreneur, I had to let go of the beliefs that no longer served me in this space as this person in this identity. So those are a few of the lessons that I learned the hard way, or the experiences that taught me this the hard way. But I think the biggest successes throughout this journey, outside of being able to help my clients, outside of being able to help them see themselves in a different light, I got to tell you, like this has been the best personal development course I have ever purchased. To see yourself one way, and over just the course of a year, I'm coming up on 2 years since I've been completely away from corporate, but to see yourself differently, the way that I think, the way that I perceive things, the way that I have grown is allowing me to serve my clients in a much higher and better capacity. So to me, that like is the ultimate success, my growth in this. And then of course, my ability to translate that growth to help others grow.
I'm glad you said that because a lot of times people look at us entrepreneurs or people who have businesses and they think, oh, wow, yeah, that's easy. I can do it.
Nope.
But no, but we both know there's moments and times where you're like, oh my God, is this really what I should be doing? I know this is what I thought, but is this really what I should be doing? And now, and I think it's kind of profound what you said, because I think in the day and time that we are in today, where people have lost their jobs and such uncertainty, I think that that's something that's also that can be used as motivation, because maybe this is a time that, I hate that people have lost their jobs, but maybe this is a time that somebody can look back and say, you know what? I don't have that job anymore, but I've wanted to start a business, or this was really my passion. And that now maybe they can start to put their foot forward to do those things. Because like you said, nothing happens. It's always the uncertainty and the uncomfortable times that really make you come out a fighter. And,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really key. Um, but yeah, and I'm looking at, what you were saying about how you like to help people overcome their self-sabotaging
Mm-hmm.
behavior. Um, just talk in general. You don't have to name anybody, but tell me about your clients that you have helped. And do you ever hear them? Do they come back to you and say, you know what, because of you, I have gone on to do X?
Yeah, yeah. So I have one client in particular, and still tracks that type A personality, but like has, for whatever reason, through her, her belief systems, had this very like conservative, risk adverse, um, personality and just way of doing things. And basically, she had kind of been like me, where I was in terms of being pigeonholed into a certain type of role and wanted to expand. But, like there was that part of her that was just like, I can do more. I know I can. And then there's that other part of her is like, let's keep things safe. Let's not ruffle the feathers way too much. And so with her, there was a lot of work in exploring. And it's funny. The thing that I remember most about her, or the thing that like stands out, I should say, most about her, is that she is the person that like reminded me how important it is for us as adults to allow ourselves to dream, to allow ourselves to tap into our imagination, to allow ourselves to have that kid-like faith and kid-like curiosity. I always say, like, you ask a kid like what they want to be, and they're going to tell you an astronaut. They're going to tell you like something wild and crazy. Why? Because nothing has told them, or nothing has caused them to believe that they couldn't do it. But then as we grow as adults and, quote unquote reality sets in, or we start to form our beliefs, and we allow fear to dictate our goings, our comings and goings, and what we'll explore. We ultimately become our own self-sabotagers in limiting ourselves and what we can do. And so in this particular case with this particular client, there was a lot of opportunity, or a lot of room for us for me to help her get back to that childlike faith and explore a little. And once she did, it was almost like this unraveling, if you will. It was that, wait a minute, why am I holding myself back? Like, why am I telling myself that these are my only options? Like, why am I, only playing on this side of the sandbox? And so being able to work with her and to help her get to that place where she had that self-realization of, wait a minute, I'm holding me back. I'm telling me that my next move can only be within, these parameters. And so she ended up actually transitioning into the career that she wanted. Like, she actually wanted to step into a more recruiting role, a corporate recruiting role, and was able to do that. She negotiated, like, I'm so proud of her. She negotiated her salary. And this is someone who has been taught and was in that space of, whatever they give me, I'm going to be grateful for, and I'm going to take it. And she stepped up, and she was just like, you know what, I'm going to test this out, because now I believe that it is possible. And I think she ended up getting a 10K above the offer. So she got 10K more than the offer that they had originally put out there. And so to watch that and to see that and to see her journey was just completely amazing. So now she is thriving in her career, in that recruitment space. And also, too, one of the other key things is she's also the type of person where she would have stayed in a job no matter how much she hated it, for years and years, and she had. And so now it's kind of like, okay, well, she put time frames around this. Like, I'm going to do this for 2 years max, and then I'm going to use this role to transition to somewhere else. So it's like her whole outlook on her career and her control over her career has shifted as well.
It sounds like you are really in tune with what your clients need. The fact that you are saying, okay, you can get past this. This is not only what you're meant to do. You need to come out and be more courageous and confident. And so many people have it, but they just don't know until someone helps them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm curious, first of all, two things. I'm curious, do you work with men at all?
I do. It's funny. I mean, men will come to me. I guess I should put it this way. Men will come to me and we'll do our introductory or discovery. And there's always like this, like, oh my gosh, this is so helpful. But if I'm being completely honest, like I've never had an actual male client. And I've gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, whatever it is whatever assignment I have in their lives, if it is just that initial conversation, then that's what it is. But up to this point, I haven't had, from a client perspective, I haven't had a male client.
And then my second question is, of your clients, how many have come to you and totally pivoted to something that was totally unrelated to, let's say, what they were trained to do and what their profession once was?
So the banker to UN person is definitely one. Someone who's totally pivoted. I mean, obviously I do the life and the leadership side of it. So I have a client who's actually a current client who is actually a senior level person in an organization. And for her, it wasn't necessarily about pivoting careers specifically. It was really embracing and adjusting to what it meant for, like, to go from individual contributor to manager, or to leader, I should say. So it's a startup. The organization grew really, really quickly. And, when you go from like 3 to 5 to all of a sudden 50 people, there's a different you that needs to show up. And so helping her pivot from, okay, I got to be the one that does everything. I got to be the one that drives everything. I got to be the one that is in control of everything, to shifting that to, okay, how do I replicate me in others? And that to me has been like a huge shift, because it's obviously shifted her thinking. It's shifting the way that she sees herself. It's shifting the tools and the resources that she leverages on a day-to-day basis. And I can see like the leader like literally emerging from her. Whereas again, going back to the whole type A personality, sometimes it's hard to delegate, because it comes with perfectionism too. And you have this mindset of like, okay, if I want to get it done right, only I can do it. And seeing someone like getting ready to like fall back into their own patterns and stopping and saying, actually, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to figure out how to delegate this. And then I'm going to figure out the tools and the resources that I need to give my team so that they can actually execute on it. So that's been one of my like recent, I don't know if I can call it successes, but success in progress of seeing someone totally pivot from their mode of operation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's very empowering, because not only are people coming to you for a change, but it is that you have to evolve and change where you currently are. So like you were saying with this person, they were in a position, and not that they wanted to leave that position, but they just wanted to become better at what they were now elevated to do. So that's great. So we're going to move into our questions at the end here. So are you ready?
I am.
Okay. Question 1. Who or what motivates you?
So I mentioned I am a woman of faith. And so I'm extremely motivated in fulfilling my God-given purpose. But I'm also extremely motivated in ensuring that I leave a legacy for, my children. I don't have children yet, but, being an immigrant and coming into this country and seeing how hard my parents worked, it's always been like my dream to, exceed their expectations, and then also to leave something for my kids so that the life that I lived, they don't have to necessarily live that. So I'm motivated by people who aren't even here yet, but I'm also motivated by the purpose and the great assignment that I know God has given me to complete in this world.
Mm-hmm. What demotivates you?
Ooh. How long do we have? A demotivator for me, a huge demotivator is, well, it falls in line with what I was just saying, to just simply exist and not be able to do something impactful. Like part of what drives me is being able to help people see their potential and then moving forward. A demotivator for me, and this is not judgment against people necessarily, is for people who they simply co-sign on the belief that they don't have control over their lives, or that they can't move forward, or they can't impact, like that defeatist mindset. That's definitely a demotivator for me.
Yeah, that's one for me too. When was a time that something was said or done to hurt you, but it worked out for your good?
Something was said or done to hurt me. Well, there's a slew of things there too. I have a lifetime of those. I remember I was in a role and this was in the recruiting space, and I had gotten to a place where I realized that, there was no room for me to grow in that particular role. And the manager had a very like micromanaging style about her. And I remember we went through our review. I had a phone screen for another job like on a Friday. And I remember so during the review, she had some bad commentary, not about my performance, but just because she didn't feel like I was as communicative with her. And basically, I didn't write up a list of everything that I had done every day at the end of the day to give her. But long story short, I remember at the end of the review, like I knew I had a phone screen for another job that day. I had literally packed up my stuff from my desk and had it in a box. Like it was just a phone interview, okay? I literally walked out of there after that conversation with her, like with the mindset of, and I forget what she said. This is what she said to me specifically. She was just like, I've got it made here. Like, my career is set. Like, you, on the other hand, like, something to the effect of like, you need to get it together if you want to make it here, or something like that. And I remember thinking to myself, like, it's sad that at this stage in your career, like you this is it for you, right? Like you were like, the way that she was saying it to me was like, I'm good and you need to do what you need to do to get here. And I saw it as, wow, this is it for you? Okay. Like, and so I used that as my fuel. And later that day, went from a phone screen on Friday to an interview on Monday. And by the end of the week, like I had an offer, and I was able to go back to her and be like, yeah, you enjoy this life that you've created for yourself that you think is just so great. Petty,
Wow.
but yes.
Sometimes we need that petty for some of those people, but I understand. You touched on this a little bit, but what is your fear?
Oh, my fear is leaving this world without completing my assignment. There are very few places in my life where allow fear to operate in a way that's debilitating. But that's part of my driver and my motivator. And also too, that's the thing that I'm fearful of, that I would squander my time here. I would squander my gifts. I would squander the resources that were given to me and the people that I've been created to help or to impact, that I would leave this world without doing that.
Mm. Is there a time when you wish you had done something that you didn't?
Yes, I wish I would have left corporate earlier. Not because it was bad, but I have literally been looking into starting my own business since 2011. Now, granted, I was relatively fresh out of college. I didn't have any savings. I didn't have any plan. Or I didn't have a plan, but it was just like, it was this thing that I had been toying with back and forth and daydreaming about, and maybe one day, and talking myself out of it. And, I took the leap in 2018 with no clients. And obviously I felt led to at the time, but like I took the leap, and at the time it was like the scariest thing that I had ever done in my life. And since then I've done things that were 10 times scarier than that. So for me, I wish I would have just taken it seriously and leaned into it back then versus, when it happened, but still no regrets.
Mm. Is there a time that you wish you had not done something?
Yes, I'm sure there are plenty of those. So as it relates to career, so this is not necessarily a regret, but I remember as I was chasing this HR business partner role back earlier in my career, I used to support the contact center with their hiring. And so, as I was told, oh, in order to be a really good business partner, HR business partner, you should learn the business, that's how you can be more impactful. And so I decided to go into the business in the contact center as a supervisor, to learn the products, right? Like that's the best way to learn the products, learn our customers, learn the process from the bottom up. Those were like the 10 worst months of my career. I always say that, what, I don't regret it, but if I knew what it was going to be like going in, I would have made a different decision. But it turned around for my good, right? It caused me to learn so much about myself. The experience itself was just horrible. I have the utmost respect for everyone that works in a call center environment, because it's not for the faint of heart.
What is your definition of success?
Ooh, my definition of a success. At one point in life, my definition of success was, oh my gosh, the money, the cars, like all of the material things. For me now, my definition of success is to be able to actually see the fruit of my labor, meaning that I can literally pinpoint, okay, this was someone's starting point, or this was my starting point, whatever the case may be. And no matter how grave or how negative or whatever it looked like, to be able to push past all of the stuff, all of the gunk, and to get to a place of being on the other side. To specify that a lot more, overcoming fear, overcoming self-doubt, overcoming all of the things that had previously held me back or usually holds people back, being able to either do it for myself or being able to help other people do it, that to me is success.
How do you recharge?
Ooh, lots of prayer, lots of worship, naps, and reruns of like 90s nostalgia on Hulu.
What are you awesome at?
What am I awesome at? Wow. It's like, the questions, but then when you get asked them, it's like, it's so hard to say. What am I awesome at?
And it doesn't have to be professional.
Awesome at being me would be too easy. I think what I do think I'm awesome at is being able to show up as a mirror for other people of what's possible. That's been I would say that's been like a childhood gift, like of being like that cheerleader, being that motivator for people, even when I didn't know that that's what I was doing, but being able to hold up a mirror for people of what's possible, despite wherever it is that they are in their life right now. Or
Wow,
at the
that's
moment.
good. What legacy do you want to leave?
The legacy that I want to leave is one that says, no matter how far down in the bottom of the pit that you are, that you're in, or that you found yourself, or that you've come from, as long as like you can see that shimmer of light, that means that there's still time. And to just clarify that, I've had some experiences where I've like been at rock bottom earlier in my life, and it was just darkness all around me. And even in that darkest space, like I found that glimmer of light. And that has been the thing that like I've held on to, that has, pulled me out of that dark place and brought me into, a place of more light. So what I'd like to leave for people is, I want to be that light, or that lighthouse, or whatever it is that you want to call that. I want to be that for people, so that no matter what dark space that they're in, no matter what what their reality says, like when I come into their presence, or whenever they come into my space in whatever capacity, like that I reflect that glimmer of hope and that glimmer of light that they need to help pull them out of that place that they're in.
Give the listeners one motivational takeaway.
One motivational takeaway. I'm a firm believer that we all are created and placed in this world because we have a unique set of gifts. We have unique superpowers, or a unique superpower. And and this is part of me projecting, but I do believe that the journey to exploring what that superpower is so crucially important, and it overrides all of the fear, all of the worry, all of the doubt. What I would say to people is, for me, what drives me is on my last day, when it's time for me to take my final breath, I want to look back, and I want to know, or I want to feel like I've accomplished everything that I needed to. And so, as we're in this place of extreme change and extreme turmoil, ask yourself, am I living a life that at the end of the day, when I go to take my last breath, that I'm going to look back and be proud of? Or am I living a life that, is going to be full of regrets? And if it's the latter, start doing what it is that you need to do to shift that. Like, as long as you have breath in your body, that means you have time to make changes.
Wow. Now, Sabine, we didn't even get to talk about your book or books. How many books do you have?
So I just have one called Transform: The Journey to Becoming. I self-published it and put that out earlier this year. So it is my first. It's more of a autobiography in terms of like kind of my life and my experiences, but it tracks my major transformations in my life, with using the caterpillar turning into a butterfly as the background metaphor in the process that the caterpillar goes through, and how the transformations that I went track along with that.
Oh, wow. Sounds very, very interesting. So before we close out, tell the listeners how they can connect with you, and if they want to work with you, what do they need to do?
Yeah, great question. So my website is www.sabinegedeon.com. On the website, you'll be able to see the coaching program that I have. I do challenges every 6 weeks. So my next challenge coming up will be the second week of June. And the challenge is going to focus on conquering the inner critic. So it's a 5-day challenge. You can learn more about that on my website as well as on my social media pages, my handles. And then also too, for those of you who are in a leadership capacity or looking to transition into leadership, I have a free guide, leadership branding guide that you can grab for completely free on my site at www.sabinegedeon.com/leadership branding.
Well, Sabine, I thank you for joining me today on Trina Talk. It has been a pleasure to speak with you, and you have been such an inspiration.
Here, thank you so much for having me.
If you like Trina Talk, please don't forget to go out to Apple Podcasts to subscribe. Also, who else in your life do you know that needs some motivation and inspiration in their life? Don't forget to share Trina Talk with them. I hope you have a great week. And remember, if you change your mindset, you can change your life. Keep striving, because success is a journey, not a destination. You can listen to Trina Talk anytime and anywhere. It's available on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, Spotify, and all other places that you can listen to podcasts. If you like the podcast, please don't forget to go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, review, and share.